Hey everyone, welcome back to the B side. We're back again with Paste Pot Pete. Last week we blocked out the basic shapes of the guy, and I did quite a bit of changing. I think during the course of the week in terms of like adjusting the pose and trying to kind of get a better feel for what I want the final thing to look like. Ram and Jamie, again, thank you guys so much for coming by. I know that Jamie's got to bail because it's about like 3 in the morning where he is. Ram, again, thanks so much for coming by and hanging out. Um, when I kind of wanted to play around with Paste Pot Pete today. We're going to this is part two. This is our repeat um, performance here. So let's bring him in and kind of see where we are. Andrew, what's up, man? Thank you guys so much for coming by. I hope this is going to be fun. I just want to kind of play around with the different parts of where we want to kind of go with Pete here. And I mentioned last week that the goal really is to try and take these characters that don't really have a whole lot inherently interesting about them, or maybe they're just ridiculous, like this guy clearly is. And try to find a way. What's up, man? Thanks for coming by. Trying to find a way to make them interesting, not just interesting, but actually kind of, I want them to look cool. I'm going to be printing these out, and I want them to kind of look like, legit statues, almost pretending as if they are actually one of the more, interesting and popular versions of these characters. Now, again, Paste Pot Pete, he's gone through a lot of different iterations, and this is his original, I think, and they wisely moved to a different costume and different name even later on. So, this is the original, and I kind of want to play around with that and see what we can do with that. Thank you, Nuno. Again, I appreciate it. This is. I mean, you can only get better from the source because he's just ridiculous. So I want to just talk again. This is just. I want to kind of talk about where we were and where I'm moving, and just trying to kind of like explain basically from my point of view why I think this is worth trying out. Andrew, again, thank you. Again, it's like I said, it's kind of hard not to compare it to the source art and say, okay, it looks okay because the source art. Not only is he wearing that outfit, but he just like I mean, whenever I check, I just recently I checked again for more pictures of him. I really don't find many. I find pretty much just variations of this one and then fan art, which is not really helpful because I don't know whether the fan art is accurate. So for the most part, like I don't really have a whole lot to go on. I have to kind of guess certain things, and that's one of the things I'll be doing tonight is trying to kind of figure out. Tattoon, thank you very much for coming by. I am doing just fine. Again, like this is really a fun stream for me because again I get to kind of work on obscure characters, which are kind of my little favorite little side passion is just to kind of try and take characters that don't really have much going for them and just see what I can do with them. So I kind of want to talk about what I did. So last week I'm going to load the tools from last project because the first one at the end of the first stream, this was where we were, right? Like so, like most of the stuff was blocked in. The overall pose, because I didn't have the gun, I didn't have the glue, I didn't have the bucket. And never underestimate how important a bucket is to a pose. Um, I was just trying to get a feel for the overall look. We had to kind of take the body and make it feel like a puffy suit. And what I was thinking of was just kind of having a dynamic pose like this, right? As best I could. But I just didn't like how straight up and down he was. So that's kind of why we moved into something a little bit more, like he's almost being pushed off of the ground by the force of the glue. Um, so this is for printing. Like I one of the things I kind of have to do to force myself to to follow through and to kind of make it as good as I can is I print them out. And again, like part of my plan with these obscure characters is to kind of create the collectible statues that no one would ever want because I want them. I like the fact that they're unknown. So from a previous stream, I did Jack of Hearts, which is another kind of obscure Marvel character. He's printed out. I've been painting him. I've been adding the first few layers of actual paint now. He's got kind of a complex vest, so it's going to take a little bit of time. But really enjoying that. Like I really like that statue, and I'm really excited about this as a statue too, just because again I like the idea. This is obviously not the actual glue, but this is the overall look that I'm thinking of. Um, and I again as a statue, I think this could be really fun. Um, so you can see from the previous thing, obviously there's a really significant shift in the overall posture of the character, and now it makes sense where the glue was. If I was using this one, he'd be kind of shooting straight down, but he'd be kind of right in line with that, which would just kind of be way too much in the same plane for my tastes anyway. So I wanted to kind of play around with that, and during the course of the week, and this is one of those things that, again, this is something that I need to kind of work on more, and I keep doing these as a result to kind of make myself work on this more, is to push things more. Like this at the time last week, I was like, oh, okay, this is feeling kind of dynamic. He's obviously doing something. He's not standing straight. He's not. The symmetry is very broken. But and then it just kept bothering me to see everything still feels very much just like a diagonal line. Like everything's from the front, it's a line. From the side, it's a diagonal line, right? So like there's no bend in the pose, and this is kind of a lot. This feels a lot more going on here. I would kind of like to have a little bit more bend in the torso, but I think this doesn't make sense with the gun. Um, yeah, Andrew, that was kind of the idea. My biggest problem always when I'm sculpting stuff for printing, especially, but even just from printing something for just display, is I can never think of a fun base. Often, I think it's because by the time I'm finished sculpting, I'm just burnt out. I just don't think of anything. But this was one of the ones where right off the bat, it's like, okay, I have to find a way to make him, again, because he's such a silly character and there's not a whole lot going on wardrobe wise. I had to kind of make his little weapon and his situation kind of contribute to that, and that's where this came from. So yeah, I think that'll kind of help, kind of like give the pose a little bit more of a of a dynamic feel, ultimately. Well, I put all my background characters in diorama, like the Marvel Ultron one. That like I did that because I did that right for the Tick, right? Again, the Tick is probably not a property that a lot of people know. It's a 90s cartoon based on a comic. It was redone, I think, as an Amazon Prime series for a couple years. And it was a fun series, but it definitely wasn't the cartoon. The cartoon was a little goofy. And I've done a lot of variations on the Tick just because I'm a ridiculous fan. Um, so like I've redone the entire intro sequence in 3D. I modeled everything and did the entire thing. And I did a bunch of characters from the Tick. And one of the things I did for that was this. Let's find my videos here. One of the things I did for that was kind of like this Age of Ultron. Um, so you can see here how, like, it's kind of like all these characters in similar poses, kind of to the Age of Ultron thing. So like, kind of like going through like this, that kind of a thing. So this is something that I did for the Tick, and I think it's kind of what Graham was talking about, and that would be a really interesting thing to do. The only potential problem would be that these guys aren't going to be posable. Once they're done like this is how they're going to be. But at the very least, I'll have a whole setup of all the statues, which I'll do. So there's definitely that. Um, but that was a really fun project to do. Can you fix this on eyeball, finger, and nail? Oh, okay. So I'm going to do my absolute best. And I do want to make sure that I don't like. There's something inherently kind of self-serving about doing a stream where like I there's something presumptuous, like what I have to say is helpful. I don't know that it will be. I'll talk about the best that I can do, but there are people on the Stylus League stream, Mike and Bradley and Tony Gore, the Super Friends, and all the guests they have, who are much more skilled in terms of sculpting and doing that kind of stuff. I'll definitely do my best, to throw out some ideas. We also have, other videos on this channel. I just released a 2-hour version, a 2-hour character building workshop for Wolverine on Wednesday. Next Wednesday, I'm going to be releasing 2-hour. Actually, it's under 2 hours, like a minute and 58 hour and 58 minutes. 2-hour version of building Goku, and it's going to be kind of like a bi-weekly thing, I think. And hopefully those things will be helpful too. But yeah, I don't want to pretend that I know more than I do. I'll do the best I can, to show what works for me, and hopefully it'll work. It'll be helpful. But yeah, I don't want to pretend that I'm the authority on any of this, because I absolutely am not. um, 90s, yeah, X-Men 97 is going to be coming out very soon. That's actually really exciting. I have not, I saw the original back in 97 but I think I was what, 20? I was in my 20s at the time. So I have to kind of revisit that. So let's talk about. So let's look at where I am with Pa2te Pot Pete here. Because you're right, touching that, like again, like things like that, eyes especially drive me crazy. I don't feel, I never feel like I get the eye socket right. I never feel like I get the eyebrow region and the little sunken area right. Like, I never feel like I get that right. And I feel like I'm always fighting the problems with that. I am going to work on the gloves. I don't know if that's going to be helpful with the fingernail, but I can definitely with the gloves. Hands are one of those things where I have so much trouble with them. I often do stylized versions of hands just because I have to kind of hide my lack of ability of doing hands behind the idea of yes, but I'm doing it differently. So that's kind of that's my cheat. And so like for example, again talking about pushing this pose, the same idea kind of applied to the face. And again, I'm gonna keep playing with this a little bit, but you can see here in this face. Um, this is where I currently am with the face in terms of him looking extraordinarily angry. But this is not where he was. And again, this is one of those things where, like, for me anyway, it's a constant struggle to kind of catch myself. Just like with the pose of last week, where, I was like, okay, this is good. This pose, he's obviously in midair doing something. And it's easy to kind of stop there and say, okay, good, I'll stick with that. Right. And then, but I just didn't, it just bothered me that it seems so vertical still. And the same with the face. Like, so, when I was doing the face, I wanted him to look angry. Obviously, again, I'm kind of compensating for the lack of, other stuff to kind of give the expression a little bit more. But this is where I was. I was right here. And I was like, okay, good. He looks angry. He's firing his gun and so forth. But it's like, but again, like I made the face look somewhat angry, and like it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to move on from that. And I just sometimes you have to kind of come back and say, wait a minute, like wherever I think that I'm good enough to stop. I should probably go and push it 20% more, just because I never feel I think that there's always more you can do. Like you have this capacity to make things as exaggerated as you want, so why wouldn't you? So again, I went back. I just exaggerated everything a little bit more, right? He's angry, but this is really angry, and I might even end up doing more with this. But like, I wanted to kind of like really make sure that I didn't shortchange the expression. So I'm deleting this guy. You can see here, the original, the mouth was open, but he wasn't yelling, and you can tell he's not yelling because I could be again. I don't pretend to know this, but I think this is right. He's not yelling because the jaw is down. It's not back. When you're yelling, your jaw's it's hinging back, right? Typically, especially when you're snarling, kind of you bring the jaw back. This was an open mouth, but that's not a yelling mouth, right? This was a yelling mouth, and this is again just silly things like that that I feel like I have to constantly be on guard against because it's just so easy to block out the shape and say, okay, the face is there, he looks angry, I'm good. But then something is missing, something is lost a little bit because you just didn't push it as far as you probably could. Um, and that's kind of what I'm trying to work against. 3D Manic, what's up, man? How you doing? Thank you so much for coming by. What I want to do today, again, there's still a million things to do. Everything, like the face and the hat and the jumpsuit, they're all at like 80%. I keep saying this, and who knows if I actually will ever get to 100. I hope I do. But there are a bunch of things I want to kind of like try and figure out. And, you know, one of them, for example, is the suit. Like in this image, and in the few images that I see of him, there's like these weird little lines, and they're not fold lines, right? They're clearly kind of like design lines, for lack of a better term, and I don't really know uh, what they are. I'm doing good, man. Again, like I said, this is always fun because it's it's just so fun to try stuff that I know no one else is sculpting. So I know I'm cornering the market on this thing, so it's kind of cool. Um, but I don't like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to do with these lines, and I want to do something with them because again, his jumpsuit is just a jumpsuit. I've done some folds on it. I don't know that I'm thrilled with them. I think that, but I don't want to go too crazy with the folds. My original plan was to have the folds be really crazy. Oh, can I repeat what I said about the mouth? Yeah. So one of the things that like in I had his mouth open. I had him, is he was yelling. It looked like he was yelling. Um, but looking at the mouth from the side, it didn't look right, and it didn't look right because again, this is what I think. I could be wrong with this, but it didn't look right because the mouth was open, but the jaw wasn't back. And what I mean by that is so the jaw. I'm going to just pretend that this is the way he was, but the jaw, the mouth was open and it was just like this, right? So the mouth was open, no doubt about it, right? But that's just the mouth going like this, right? You're not yelling when you do that. When you yell, you're just really throwing your jaw back. So what I did was, again, I kind of I pushed that jaw back like that. So now it's like it's further back. Um, so let's kind of go here. What I'll do is I'll just do a quick little before and after if this helps. Um, right? So you can see just, this is where kind of how it was. It was just a straight mouth open. But now, again, this is kind of the same thing I was talking about with the body. The body was very vertical and the mouth was vertical. It was just open. But now you can see the lines of of the mouth are much more angular back. And I just feel that kind of works better. And I want, and again, it exaggerated the expression more because the jaw being open that far back, it kind of creates more of a wrinkle in the nasolabial fold kind of a thing. It just makes it seem more extreme, and that was kind of, again, like I said, it's something I'm trying to kind of guard against. Guard against playing it, not playing it safe, but just being too quickly complacent with where I currently am. I haven't done anything. The tongue is I'm considering that too because I'm not really sure because the tongue, this base mesh here, the tongue is part of the base mesh, and so. Like if I go to solo mode here, you can see this is like the tongue is actually part of it. So like getting that tongue up, um, it, it might be more trouble than it's worth. Um, I didn't really think that the tongue needed to be too much because again, when you're yelling, it's kind of it's kind of tense down the bottom of your mouth. I think so. I was using that as an excuse not to do the tongue. I might go back to the tongue, like one of those things to come back to later on, if I start feeling like something needs to be done there. Um, am I going to model the bag of money? Not in this case, because again, the bag of money really I think is context specific to that particular part of the comic. Um, and I think it might just kind of be in a way like I mean if I do, it might be like it might actually be kind of cool to do something like that where I have like the bag of money down here and kind of like dollar bills kind of like swirling around or falling or something like that. That would be kind of a cool thing. It'd be tricky to do that for a print, but that'd be kind of a neat thing to do. Try and find a way to incorporate that. Well, I haven't ruled it out. But I wasn't not imaginative enough to figure out how to incorporate that in a organic way. But there's still time. There's still time. So what I got to do is I got to figure out these lines on the jumpsuit, whether they're just literal, just black stitching, which could be kind of interesting, or whether they're like hairs, or whether it's just like whether it's just kind of like a motley outfit that just wasn't colored. I don't know. Kind of that's again, it's one of those things where I think I might just go with stitching, but it might just seem too busy. So gotta figure that out. I want to also my main thing I want to do right now is actually I want to play around with the glue and the connection um, to the gun. Yo, Ian, how you doing, man? Hope you're feeling well. Hope you're feeling well. Hope you're feeling well, buddy. I hope it's it sucks that you had to miss your stream. Hopefully you'll be okay for Sunday, guys. That's um the plan is I think for Ian to the Digital Forge to come back on this coming Sunday. Hopefully Ian's feeling okay and he's able to do that. Because again, it's always awesome to see. I wish I could. I am often not able to see his live just because I'm on the East Coast and the West Coast, so and I'm an old man, so I have to go to bed early. But it's always awesome to see it. He's the best. He's the best interactor with people on the chat, and he does such awesome stuff. So if you haven't checked out the Digital Forge, do it. Go to Stylus and you can check that out. Way. Oh, good. You'll be on the Sunday. Awesome. So I believe that is typically 9 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. Um, so that is. I'm working on obsolete though. I'm working on obsolete. That's it's. I'm just about there. Awesome. Yeah, awesome to see Ian here. So what I want to do again, I want to do a couple things. I want to figure out the connection between the little hose and the bucket, which doesn't sound interesting, but I do want to kind of find a way to use the Z spheres to kind of block out the sheen, and then use the curve brush for that. I want to create the little bubbling over glue. I think again that could be kind of a fun element to kind of play with the silhouette. Um, and I want to maybe try and use nano mesh for that. And again, these are often just excuses to kind of play with some of the toys that ZBrush has, but that's kind of what I want to do. So I want to figure out first the connection between the pot and the gun. And again, this is these are like almost logistical challenges because when I print him out, I have to figure out where that goes. But I wanted to add to the silhouette and not get in the way, right? So clearly, I don't want it to come in front of him. That would be really kind of it would be an obstruction. It would be kind of like really an intrusive thing. So I wanted to kind of wrap around, right? So you can see here in this picture, he's got this little connector there, and that's one of those things where I kind of want to I want to figure out kind of an interesting way to make it seem homemade, right? Because this is clearly a homemade situation here, and just sticking a cylinder there doesn't seem like it really it's a missed opportunity, right? So I want to kind of like, I want that to feel something he was like he drilled it and then had like glue around there or something like that. I got to figure out what's going on with that. So before now, I am just going to use a cylinder because that's going to be a nice little way to mark the spot, right? So let's go to my little bucket here. I'm just going to insert a cylinder, just to have something there to kind of mark the spot where the glue comes from. And again, I want it to be, see, it looks like it's right smack dab in the middle of here. So the question is, should it be coming out of this way and then kind of come back around, or should it just come straight down? I think it should just come straight down, probably. Um, yeah, the issue sometimes is that like I forget to put placeholders, and I'll think, oh, that's done. I can see. I got the cylinder there. Well done, Groovin. That's my problem is when the place also or when I replace the placeholder with the real thing and then I'm preferring the placeholder to what I came up with. These are all kinds of problems that we have. That actually has happened. Like I've literally just like I was like, oh, I'm just going to block this in for now, and then when I replaced it, it's like, you know what? I kind of liked it better with the blocked in version. It's the challenge. All right, so this is my stand-in for the little cork. This is my little cork. So one thing I learned, and this is probably something that everyone already knows. I did not know this. I've been using ZBrush for probably 10 years. No, 13 or 14 years, because I remember using it in 2012. It took me for this long to realize that if I want to scale this cylinder in only two axes, like say the Y and the X, I just go on the Z and hold down Alt, and it'll do everything but Z. Isn't that weird? Like, I mean, how did I not know that? But anyway, yeah, I had no idea. So this is my placeholder, and I don't know how big it's going to be. It doesn't really matter. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my Z spheres to plot out the path of the tube. And I'm thinking probably for the actual print, it will probably be like a silicone tube. I'm not going to print that out. I'll probably just draw out a silicone tube. Um, and let's go here to our little subtool palette. And again, my stupid face is in the way, and I apologize, but I'm going to come up here to insert Z sphere, and let's pop this guy. And I'm just going to put my little Z sphere right here, and then scale it down. And this is a relatively recent addition to ZBrush. And I don't know how relatively recent, because I've lost track now. But like the idea of being able to plot out a curve by using the Z-sphere chain is such an awesome thing. I used to work Z-spheres in your workflow. Oh yeah, I mean Shane Olson does his stuff is just gorgeous. I like Z spheres too, and because one of the things I like about them is just because I feel like I just block out shapes. I'll block out cylinders and spheres, and kind of like block out the silhouette that way. I like the Z spheres because you can kind of put your character in a little bit of a pose while you're doing it. If you kind of know they're going to be in a pose, it's a nice little way to kind of try out. Because sometimes you just want to see how the pose looks. Like you'll do a character, you block it out, then you do the pose, you realize, oh, you know what, the legs should be longer. you can see that more easily, I think, if you try out poses as you're doing it. It's really kind of cool. Ram, this is a family-friendly show. This is a this is a family-friendly show. When I'm older and even more grumpy, I think I might be there. I might be, I might be with you on that one. I'm gonna drag out this little sphere and make my draw so nice and small. And now I gotta figure out exactly how I want this to piss pot Pete. I mean, to be fair, Ram, that's not a more ridiculous name than his actual name. So it's true. It's plausible. It's definitely a plausible name. So let's snap my little guy here. And now I'm just going to start adding ones in between and just getting a feel for what the overall, not that one, the overall silhouette should be. So I would like, again, I want to make sure that this is as kind of as interesting as it can be, but it needs to also be functional, obviously. And I don't want it to be so zigzaggy and crazy that it becomes a distraction. I just don't want it to. I just don't want it to become a boring part. So this is the challenge. This is always the kind of the thing that I try and find a balance between is making something that is interesting that could be boring, but not so just not so not so crazy that it becomes disruptive. And that's again like that's like for example, whenever I do a comp in Photoshop of a render, uh, it's always way overdone just because I'm just like, well, this could be interesting and this could be interesting, and then I end up doing all these different things and it looks like some sort of circus as opposed to. Let's see here, and again, like I don't need to make this too much, but one of the things things about the Z spheres is that it's easy to get carried away with them too. But I want this to kind of give me a nice little start with the curve. All right, so I think coming out of the bucket, it should be a little bit straight at first. This is the exciting watch me move around Z spheres portion of the stream. That's what everyone's looking for. How do you visualize that strong energetic posture for that character as the character is frozen to one? I mean, for this character here, again, one thing I say about Z spheres is that you can kind of like at least try out some poses and see whether the proportions that you're doing work. You can always just undo. For this guy, that was, the as soon as I decided I wanted to do this character, and I decided I wanted to do him pretty quickly. The obvious thing is going to be for him was going to be, well, you can't just have him in kind of like a museum pose, right? Because you can't. All that's going to do is highlight how ridiculous he is. Um, and the goal here is to act as if this guy is in his own movie. He's got, he's he's Pa2te Pete, damn it. So I wanted to kind of like make it seem as if he is uh, the kind of character who is, you know, as intimidating as a clown-suited glue shooter can be. And one of the things that that I'm an animator by nature, by occupation, a rigger and animator more than anything. And so usually the silhouette, the pose is kind of the major thing with me. And so I mean, I'm not saying I'm terribly good at this, but that is usually my concern, right? Is the silhouette, is the pose. So that's whenever I kind of decide that I want to do one of these characters, it's not because I feel that I'm going to do them justice in the sculpting side of things. I mean, I hope I do, but I'm more excited about the idea of finding kind of like almost like a keyframe, like a context to put them in that makes the character seem more, you know, more exciting than they would otherwise be. Um, and the fact that he shot this glue again, like I had said, I think in a previous stream too, I wanted to kind of like do a little bit of exaggerated version of him. And one of the things I wanted to exaggerate in this case was how powerful this glue, this shooting glue was, because it's really pushing him off the ground. I would love it if I would actually be able to grab these stupid things. I keep missing them. So I'm trying, like, I don't like this kind of constant little line here. Um, Again, like it's just that swooping thing. It was just too. It was just too. And again, like he's flying through the air, so it should be a little bit more chaotic, right? So, um, and like I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of constantly trying to be on guard against being like, yep, there you go, that'll work. I'm just like, is there a better, is there a more interesting way to do it? Um, and there always is, but I don't know that I'm going to find it, and I just want to kind of make sure I don't stop looking too soon for the more interesting way to do it. So I think this might work. Again, it's got a little bit going on here. This feels like it somewhere it needs to kind of have a little bit. It can't just be zigzaggy everywhere, right? So that might be okay. So now let's do, and again, I'm just going to use the regular curve tube. I'm not going to get too crazy with this. Um, okay, yeah. So something silhouette you mentioned. My advisor advised study appealing character study silhouette. Yeah, and again, as kind of in an animation from an animation standpoint, the silhouette is everything, especially when um, you're trying to kind of, again, like if you're trying to convey an emotion or a situation in very very brief amount of time, right? It's really more about either the timing of the action, or that those visual snapshots that you get when you see a character. And one of the things that one of the ways you can do that in a silhouette is by kind of avoiding things like tangents. Like for example, it's probably one of the things that one of the problems I had with my original pose, right? So here, and if I'm just going to go here to straight black and turn off everything here, right? So a tangent, I think for the most part, again, I might be getting the terminology wrong, but a tangent I think is when basically you have overlapping parts that make it so that you can't differentiate between them, right? You can't see the arm and the leg. They're just kind of like they overlap. There's no negative space between them. There's no way to see them more easily, right? I'll get a flat tone here, make it easier. Oh, maybe not. Okay, can't do flat tone. Let's do something like this. I'm trying to find something without. There you go. So, and if you move the camera this way a little bit, right? At least now you can see this arm, but now you can't see this foot, right? So, like, ideally the silhouette is one that should read clearly. You should be able to kind of see in that silhouette what is actually happening. You shouldn't need to rely on being able to see with color or light in order to say, okay, this is a character who is doing X, Y, and Z, right? So when he has something, again, obviously now you can't help depending on the angle that you're looking at. You can't help. You're going to have some angles where the tangents are going to be there. But that's the whole point in animation, especially when you're animating toward a camera. You have that kind of control. You have a lot more control over what's being seen and what's not being seen because you know where the camera is shooting. In a statue, obviously, well, I mean, you're going to see a statue from all points of view, and so there's going to be some situations where things are unclear. But like this for here, again, you can get a feeling for kind of something happening, but it's not as clear as this, right? Just because you can see more. So I think from a point of view of appeal, character appeal and silhouette and that kind of thing. It's so the shapes read clearly, and that's one of the kind of, again, like I said, it's one of the things where I'm generally speaking, I'm trying to think in those terms, like geez, I'm always trying to think in those terms. So like here, same kind of a thing applies, right? If I were to turn everything off here and go to that sketch material, again, like it's kind of, obviously you can't really tell whether he's got a gun at this point, but the pose has a lot more open space in it, right? As opposed to something like this where everything's kind of overlapping. So that's kind of that's kind of what I'm thinking is what in my head anyway. is that I'm trying to make it so that I'm sorry, I'm hearing a weird noise in my house. Trying to make it so that the pose reads quickly. That there's that you kind of look at it and immediately you feel motion, you feel dynamism, and I just this wasn't doing it. This was He could be standing on his tiptoes at this point, right? There's no doubt that this guy is in midair. There's no doubt that he's doing something. There's no doubt that there's some tension in the body, and that's what I was trying to focus on. Hopefully that helps. Again, I'm not a master animator, but that's just kind of what I tend to think like. Um, so I try and kind of incorporate that in the pose that I come up with for the characters, and I'm again like I'm always convinced that I have not quite pushed it far enough. I'm much better at at realizing how to push a pose when it's someone else. When it's my friend, one of the other guys. I'm full of ideas for the other guys. For my own stuff, I'm like at a complete loss. But I think it's probably because part of me knows, well, I don't have to be the one to make the changes, so throw out some ideas everywhere. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just my laziness. I think I'm gonna stick with this. I'm gonna go with this now. So I'm going to go and I'm gonna get my curve 2 brush. Um, Before I do that, I have to come up here to stroke, which is where my curve related stuff is, right? I'm gonna go here to curves helper. Dude, it's amazing because again, when I'm like talking with Tony or Mike or Bradley, and they're talking about like the pose, I am a font. I am full of wise ideas. This is how you should do it. This is why you should do it. It's like I wrote the book, and then when it's my own stuff, I am just like, I don't know. I don't know how that. It's weird. I don't know why it happens, but yeah, totally true. Maybe you just don't see your own work as clearly as you see other people's stuff, or maybe I don't know. I think you just see it differently. So maybe um, your tendencies uh, aren't to see possibilities anymore because if you had seen those possibilities, you would have done it that way. You would have done it that way already. I don't know. All right, so let's go here now, and I'm going to go. Oh, no problem, Tatiana. Again, hopefully that's helpful. I don't. I'm not just spewing a bunch of you know crap here, but let's go up to stroke. I'm going to go to curves helper. I'm going to go to copy Z sphere chain, and it basically is going to just kind of like I guess copy that Z sphere chain. And now I need to go to my brush, my curve 2 brush here. Now copy Z sphere chain, right? And then I have to uh, create curve. So now it creates this little dotted line, right? And it's applied to like this little cube here. Fresh eye syndrome. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what it is. So I got this curve, right? Copied from that chain. Now I created that curve from that chain, and it's using this sphere as kind of like this what's it called? This cube, which isn't it's kind of right there. You can't see. There it is. As kind of like just the target. But now that I have that dotted line, I can go to my curve 2 brush and just apply it to that. I'm going to hide my Z-sphere chain so I don't have to see it. Make sure my draw size is what I want it to be, which is not that. So let's increase that a little bit. Increase that a little bit. Not so much. All right, so I got to find that happy medium. I'm going to hit 6 a couple times to smooth that curve as best I could. It's definitely a higher res curve, which is not a big deal. I'm going to remesh this tube probably anyway. But this really helps again. So it just kind of it connects it to this. I'm going to play around with this, and I'm not going to. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go too crazy with this tube because again, it's not going to print out anyway. This is really just for visualization purposes. I'm up here to stroke, and under curve, I'm just going to turn on lock start and lock end. So I can. It's not really letting me lock. It's not really locking the end, is it? There we go. Bend start and bend end had to be on. So just going to kind of bring this around a little bit. So I am going to kind of have this pass beyond his leg. I don't want again, like I was talking about like tangents and having things visible, but it can also be a curse, right? You can say, now you can see the whole thing. Well, you probably wouldn't, right? You probably would, you do need to have some overlap for it to feel like it's part of the scene. So it's kind of like a mixed bag there. Anyway, Samurai, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate that. This is, like I said, these are the ones I kind of feel a little bit more accomplished when they're done if I like the way it looks, because I feel like I had very little to work with. Like, this is not, a character that, I mean, like, again, if I'm trying to do Wolverine, it's kind of hard not to have him look okay at the end, right? Because he's Wolverine, like he's gonna look okay. 'Cause Wolverine's a cool character. Pa2te Pot Pete is not a cool character. Well, I mean, I have a certain affection for him, but it certainly isn't because he's a cool character. He most assuredly is not. So this is fun. I'm going to tap on the mesh here, make that dotted line go away. I'm going to split unmask points so that the little cube is left behind. Delete it, right? I don't need the Z sphere chain anymore, and you can see I've already changed it anyway. So, but that is such a great little tool that the ZBrush has now. It was not the case for a while. Using the curve brush was often a real challenge because you had to kind of find a way to manipulate it in three different planes, and it was really hard to do. I just want to see, does it make sense? Does it make sense to kind of smooth it out a little bit here to kind of make it look like it's got a little bit of a connector, like a thinned. I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to do that because I am going to put a little extra connector here. Yes, Ram, thank you. Hit the like button. Even if you don't like it, hit it sarcastically. I won't know. I will assume that I must have been really killing on this stream. And you'll know that you were mocking me the entire time. I'll take it. I'll take it. I don't have any pride. It's all right. So now I'm gonna go to my little guy here. And again, he's got like a little extra thing. Technical term, you wouldn't understand. Thanks, Ian. I'm gonna bring in a cylinder. I'm gonna just hold down Control, just drag up a whole copy of this thing, and then go to my gear and swap it out for a cylinder. Which is one of the coolest things about this. It's not that new, I suppose, that ZBrush does, but the fact that you can just Control drag out a copy of something so long as you have no sub-D levels, and just swap it out for a shape on the fly. It's so cool. So I'm going to bring this and just kind of pop this right smack dab in the middle of this. This is going to be kind of like that little extra connector, and it's going to be kind of what allows me to transition to a slightly thinner thing without it being obvious. And I'm going to do a little beveling and such. So let's do that. Let's kind of get this up here as best I can. I'm going to bring this down this way and just rotate it a touch. And let's go to Control F. So as you can see, Control F. So you can see here, not a whole lot of resolution on this guy. So let's go ahead and bring some with my Z modeler. I'm going to come in here and insert multiple edge loops. Going to change it to keep polygroups. So I don't have to worry about all the polygroups. A little bit of that, a little bit of that. Now I'm going to bevel this edge. Control dragging, to make teeth. Yeah, just drag out a copy, scale it up or down a little bit, adjust it. Like that was such a great thing. Again, before it was duplicate or oh god, it was a nightmare. So many things that are just kind of like just a given in ZBrush now. I don't know how we lived without them in the past. I'm gonna go back here to regular edge loop now, just to kind of give myself one or two here. This is the box modeler in me from back when I used to, like model with Maya and so forth. Like I would use edge loops just to kind of hold edges, which you don't really need to do anymore. You can just crease, but I still do it. I'm gonna hover over here and let's do a little bevel, just to kind of get a little bit of this. And now let's see. I know that you can do insert multiple edge loops and then interactive elevation. This is one of those things that I kind of know. I'm getting some weird topology though. What is up with that? That's funky. I don't know. I'll take it. It's fine. All right. Yeah, this is good. So now we're going to come in here, and because, why not? Let's come in here and do a few little extrudes because I can't help it. I'm going to come here and polygroup the poly loop. So I'm going to polygroup that poly loop, polygroup that poly loop, polygroup, not that one. I was like the Finnish flag, Swedish. Okay, so I got those guys. Now I'm going to extrude that polygroup all. Bring it down a little bit. Little bevel. Come on. Oh, come on. I know that like ZBrush has like a minimum that it likes to bevel unless you kind of like wiggle it and convince it to try something different. But yeah, what is up with what is happening? What is happening with this friggin' weird thing right there? All right, you know what? I'm not doing interactive elevation because it got weird on me. Someone has to explain this to me. What that was. No, it's not. It's not a mask because. Anyway, let's just undo that. Let's pretend that part didn't happen. All right, there we go. And then I'll extrude these again. That was odd. That was very odd. Possible that I'm not the modeling guru. I'd like to pretend that I am. I mean, I don't really pretend that I am. All right, fantastic. There we go. That does it. That's gonna do it. And let's go here and invert this. I'm just gonna do. Actually, I'm just gonna do a quick little polish my features, just to kind of tune it down a little bit. Maybe a little polish. Exactly. that's my catchphrase again. Close enough. It's good. No one's going there. Okay. So I did a little relax, and let's make sure that this goes back to. And again, I think what I'm going to end up doing with this is like putting a bunch of like there's a bunch of tape wrapped around there, something like that. I want this to feel very homemade. So I think I'll be doing that very soonish as well. I want to play around with making this stuff on here, the little bubbly stuff around here. And again, I don't pretend to think that this is necessarily the best way to do it, but I like to try these things to see if they work. So I want to try and maybe use nano mesh for this, just to kind of get myself started with some irregularities in terms of like a bumpy texture. Could totally just bring in a sphere or a cylinder and then just sculpt in some bumpies. But why not give it a shot? This is okay. So I'm going to go to my bucket. My bucket right here. This is my little bucket connector. So I'm just going to call that bucket connector. The stupid names, by the way, I come up with for some of these things. It's best just to ignore them. Hose. That one's not so stupid. All right. So on my bucket, what I want to do is I want this bubbly stuff coming around here. And I want to try and use nano mesh for this just because I think it'd be fun to try it. Nano mesh is one of those things that I kind of forget that it exists sometimes, and then I realize, oh, this could actually work. I think I used it before to kind of make like a bubbly cloud thing, just by kind of using some randomization of the nano mesh. So I'm gonna get my little bucket here. I'm gonna duplicate it and solo it. All I want is this. So I'm gonna isolate this guy here, delete hidden. I'm gonna do a quick auto group to get rid of that little part. I don't need that either. Delete hidden. And let's turn on double-sided so I can see both sides. And all I really want are these top two rows. So I'm just going to go to my little poly group, poly loop, and let's just grab these, get rid of those. All right, so what I want to do is I want to kind of use this as basically a place to bring in a bunch of spheres of different sizes and shapes and just see if it works. I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll give it a shot. So let's come here, and now I could make them spheres. I could make them a little bit more oblong, but you can always do that in nanomesh as well. So let's just see, right? So I'm going to go here to my brush. I'm going to choose an insert brush that I don't really care about. I'm going to insert, grab this one here. This IMM Basic. It's got nothing interesting, but it does have a polysphere on there. So I'm going to come up here to brush and come down here to create nanomesh brush. So now it's a nanomesh brush, right? I'm going to make sure the sphere is selected, and I'm going to come on here and insert nanomesh a poly. I want to change that to insert nanomesh poly group all. I'm just going to drag these out. So now I have a bunch of little blobs here, all right? Now let's come here to nano mesh, and let's just play around with this a little bit, and let's see if it works. Again, this might be a disaster. I don't care. I just want to kind of play around a little bit. So first thing I want to do, let's kind of turn on random distribution so I can get some randomization here, something like this. Okay. Now I want to kind of play around with the size, right? So I want to go here, bring the size up a little bit, and I would love to know, and I would love to know if there's just an overall size variation, but I don't think there is. There's a width variation, a length variation, and a height variation. So you kind of like have to um, play around with these different things, which is fine. So you can also try a different random seed to kind of get different things, right? But what this is going to do is it's just going to give me something that I could use, you know, as a starting point. And I can even scale this in a little bit, right, so that it's more, it's kind of more bubbling over. Okay. Again, you can do a little rotation here if we want to kind of get them to. Oh, geez, it's good. Look at that. It's going all over the place. It's interesting. I think it's rotating. I don't know what's going on there. But that's fine. Um, I got some rotation here. Try some variation in the rotation here just to kind of get a little bit of that. Again, I don't know, but I'm going for randomization, right? So let's do something like this. Let's go here. And what if I change the prop to fit? Definitely not that. Some of these I just don't know, so I'm experimenting. The size here, I want this to kind of be like something like this. Let's see, random distribution. Just kind of throw it around a little bit and see what we can get a little more, the more or less we have. I think that's pretty good. Turn the size up or down. I want to do that, but I want there to be some rotation in here. There is a method to this madness that I'm doing here, but it might not be quite so obvious yet. All right, a little bit of that. Let's kind of get this a little bit here. This, by the way, you can just sit here and play with this forever, but I think this is all right like this. Okay, maybe a few more. Increase the size a touch. All right, so let's go here to inventory and just go to one to mesh, right? And now if I go to solo, you can see I got this little band here, which I can just get rid of. All right, so this is going to give me a starting point. It's not where I'm going to end. Obviously, I might just dynamesh this and kind of go with that. But let's get my move brush here. Let's just kind of push these ones down a little bit. These little inflates to kind of, you know. Obviously, I need to kind of do a little bit of adjustment to where we're seeing these things, but that's not really a big deal. So kind of, again, like when I push these and they get all flattened, I'm not really concerned. I'm going to inflate them again anyway. But sometimes I think this is kind of a cool way to get some randomization in the shapes that you have here, as opposed to trying to sculpt it out of just a big blob. And then I can just kind of come here and kind of go. You saying, Ram? You saying I need help? I mean, you're not wrong, but let's go here and let's bring a little bit here. So I'm trying stuff today. I'm gonna go here to my deformer. I have the mesh is partially hidden. I never deleted it. Delete hidden. All right, fine. ZBrush be that way. I'm gonna go here to my deformer, and let's give myself a few of these, and a few of these, something like this. Maybe a few of these. And I'm just going to kind of grab a couple of these here and pull these. What we can do with that? All that work. But I'm gonna grab these and pull these down a little bit, kind of make them drop, like these little droopies. All right, something like that. Give myself a little head start. Except, got my snake hook brush because snake hook brush is awesome for this kind of stuff. And just start, you know. So what this is going to do is going to give me a bumpy mesh, right? Even though I'm going to remesh it or dynamesh it or have you, it's going to give me a bumpy mesh that kind of already feels um, a little bit like bubbling stuff, right? Let's go to my little move brush here. Just gonna pull this down. Right. So something like this. And now let's turn on Dynamesh. And that is not what I want. As you can see, it makes sense, but it's not what I want. So 128. Now I know there's a little button here. I can turn this off, and it'll tend to do something. I don't know what it does. I forget. So who knows? But on Dynamesh a little bit here. Right. So again, this is just going to kind of get me started. I feel that Dynamesh just kind of helped me get some quick randomization in there. It was kind of fun. And again, now for this stuff here, I can just build it up, or I could actually use brushes that kind of designed to build it up. I'm going to turn on backface masking for this here, but I'm going to go to my trusty little, kind of bring that area there, just push it in. Little inflates. It's actually a cool brush. I don't remember where I got it. It might have been Pablo Munoz Gomez. I don't know for sure, but there's a brush called candle wax, which kind of like mimics, well, candle wax, which kind of would work for this probably. I don't know how much of a brush, how much of a resolution you need for it to work though. But right now, just kind of making this, getting started with this here, getting it nice and bubbly. Obviously, we'll go in after the fact and do some, do some adjustments to it. But for now, let's do a little one of these. It's like we're just going to brute force this. We're just going to inflate that part out. Kind of get a little bit of that little stuff going on here. Snake hook. Bring this up a little bit here, like this. All right, I'm getting a little somewhere here. Inflate. There's the blob brush, which is actually pretty fun. It's just crazy. I have one question, Ian. How do I get better at ZBrush? No, dude, I will always take advantage of that. Again, I'll be, I'll be here with questions at the ready. Because there's always going to be a few things that I know work, and I forget how. Here's like one of the things I want to see. I want to see. I don't tend to be the one to do it myself, but I want to see someone like really use the slime bridge, because I love the slime bridge as a concept. I love it, like that, and the what's that thing called? The mesh extrude and mesh extrude pro. Like I remember when they first came out, I was like, these look awesome. Wow, I can do we can do so much with those. And then I never thought of what to do with them. And it's not ZBrush's fault, it's my fault. But I just can never think of like fun ways to use these things, which I know have a lot of fun uses. But yeah, I want someone needs to kind of sculpt something almost exclusively using the slime bridge, because I think it would be awesome. I just think it's one of those tools that, like, again, in the hands of someone with much more creativity than I, would be so cool. Oh, hell, well, yeah, and I see what I got to do, Ian, is I got to be able to stay up past 8 o'clock, which is once the summer comes, and I no longer need to worry about being awake early on a weekday. That'll be fun. And again, I do, and I would love to. I do. I think I'm gonna have to crash one of Ian's streams. See if I can crash this. See if I just get some extra tea, and I'll be able to crash Ian's stream. Oh, you did Venomous Mouth with Slime Bridge? That's awesome. That is awesome. I did the closest I did to Slime Bridge, and I haven't. I don't. I haven't used Slime Bridge a lot, mostly because I'm still using ZBrush 2022, because I have the permanent license of 2022, and I'm afraid, because I'm a teacher, and because I have the educational license, I'm afraid that at some point when I retire from teaching, I'll lose access to it. So I'm that paranoid, as if anything I do now is going to matter 5 years from now. But still, but one of the things I did, I want to show it just because I'm proud of it. Um, I used not slime brush, I used the mesh splat. And the mesh splat was one of those things. Again, I love, but I was like, I can't think of many things I would use it for in context. But I did think of one. We did on Stylishly. We had a Super Friends one where we did stylized versions of characters from Nightmare Before Christmas, and the I didn't want to do any of the main characters. I'm an obscure character guy, and I went with the clown without a face. No, the clown with a tearaway face. It was called, right. And I want to see if I have it because I was very happy with my tearaway clown. Let's see here if this is the final one. 12/2, 12/23. Let's go with 12/23. Let's see if it works. Um, I saved this, right? Please tell me I saved this. Anyway, so here's the clown with the tearaway face. I made him kind of a portly fellow. Speaking of clowns, I mean, we have this guy wearing a clown suit, so we may as well. This might take it. Okay, yeah. So So here's my clown with the tearaway face, and uh, it was really fun because I got to use the mesh splat brush to uh, to kind of show you know the stuff connecting the face to the skull, and that was a really fun sculpt. This was one of the more disturbing ones that I had done. Raul, thanks, man. I always and this is one of those ones like I'd like to print it out, but I just don't think there's any way. I don't know. Like this is everything's very thin. He's a very big dude on a very small unicycle. I don't think it would print. So I had to I just stuck with him. But I was very excited. And this is one of the real benefits of working like with Stylistic, working with the guys in the stream, is that I'm impinging on people who are far better than I am. So I have to kind of like up my game. And whenever I'm like on that stream, I try and do that. And I was really excited with this one because I thought the tearaway face was cool. And Mesh Splat was a huge, huge win for this. It was just such um, a great rush just for all that crazy crap that'd be hard to do any other way. Um, yeah, and I think if I were to print again, I'd have to kind of get almost a little mixed media if I were to print this, right? Some of this I might need to actually kind of like build like with like hot glue or something. You know what I mean? Um, Kind of like what I'm doing right now, where I'm doing the X-Men issue 1 3D print cover. It's like all 13 characters, and they're all printed out. I'm now building the mountain behind them with the X-Men in it. Like I have to build everything out of foam. Not used to that. This is all very new. So this will be yeah. This I mean, I think for the most part this would be printable. The face would be a tricky thing um, to do well. And I definitely at some point I'm going to give this a go when I feel more confident in doing mixed media probably. Um, but yeah, that would be interesting to see. And again, this is that was one of the ones I was really excited about the silhouette too. Again, that was the first thing I did. I remember that when I was planning that. Go back to what I was saying to the tune earlier on. The first thing I did was I wanted that pose. I had the idea of him being on an angle on the unicycle, and it doesn't make any sense. You're not going to be tearing off your face while running a unicycle, but a clown with a tearaway face, I don't think is once you're working in that zone, I don't think necessarily logic is your primary concern. That's my opinion. So I think again, this is kind of falling down here again as this is he's being pushed this way, so it might make sense to have some of this be kind of flinging off a little bit. Because again, it's just a bit of a static stuff, and it makes sense for it to be kind of flinging off. So let's just see how that might work. Um, oh, Ian, I do want if you're still here, I do want to ask because I was watching Ashley's stream last night, and if you haven't seen Ashley's stream, we should go see it. Ashley always does awesome stuff. But she had taken a multiple subtool thing into Transpose Master so that she could kind of move forms around um, as a whole. And while she was in there, she used a deformer on those different things. And I didn't think that was possible. Maybe again, I don't know if it might be just an older version of ZBrush, but whenever I use a deformer like a bend curve or what have you in Transpose Master, when I try to kind of bring it back into the regular subtools, I get really distorted meshes. And I didn't know if that was kind of a product of of an older version and it's been fixed, or maybe it was just something inherently distinct about my model. But I was wondering about that. Do you know if using deformers in Transpose Master is an issue? Um, if maybe it's only an issue if one of the things in Transpose Master has sub-D levels, maybe, because I think when she was when she was doing on hers, she was working on Dynamesh, so there were no sub-D levels. So maybe I'll answer my own question. Maybe using deformers on a mesh in Transpose Master, if it has sub-D levels, will cause a problem. Maybe I just answer my own question. I don't know. But anyway, speaking of deformers, I want to kind of like see about maybe having this part just kind of flip up a little bit, maybe. Again, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but we'll give it a shot. Let's come in here and just, right, so just this little part here. And let's see. Where's the other? Okay. Okay, yeah, and I wasn't. You have to accept the changes. Okay, maybe that's what it was. Maybe I didn't accept the changes. Okay, yeah, because there'll be I'll be doing some experimentation. There'll be some experimentation on that one. Let's see here. Okay, so it's not really going to give me that, but that's okay. Maybe it'll work. Jeepers. Yeah, this might be it works, but it's just this is actually fun. Okay, so I should just do it the old-fashioned way and just do this. What am I doing? Um, I was, I was getting a little full of myself here. I did nano mesh, I did curve helper. I was like, oh, look at all this extra fancy stuff I'm doing, and I'm like, I should just friggin' mask and rotate like a normal human being. Gonna move infinite depth. This didn't make sense to me actually that it would be so kind of so adherent to the bucket when he's flying. He's flinging it around a little bit there. So I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of this first. Yeah, and that's I mean, I guarantee that's probably part of it. It's probably part of the older stuff. I do need to just you know bite the bullet because I did just re-up my teacher's license just like last week. So now one of the great things is that the educational license now on Maxon is for a year instead of 6 months. So there's even less paranoia. I have no excuse anymore. Again, I'm going to end up remeshing this and trying to kind of sculpt a little bit of, kind of swirly glue gook in there. But I just, as I keep reminding myself and keep saying, I'm just kind of trying to get a feel for the overall distribution of it and kind of the overall look, just to kind of, some of these things. And again, like, and I'm sure this is probably something that's not just me, but like, like when it's this kind of stuff, sometimes it's just better to do this to kind of go through and do this on a day where like you should be working, but you don't really have the energy for anything crazy. So then you're just gonna sit there and just slowly go through and start doing the little. All right, buddy. Ian, thanks so much for coming out, man. Always great to see you. Hope you're feeling better, man. But that's like for things like hair, even sometimes cloth, like all those little stringlets. That might not be a word. That that kind of make them feel like the real like there's a certain time for that, and there's a certain time where it's not for that. And I think that sometimes, for me anyway, um, it's like I'm much better at doing that when I'm like almost unconscious of the fact that I'm even sculpting. Like I'll just like go through and just even for faces. I think I remember I did a Beast Man for here for Silas Lake, and I had lots of like detail in the face, and it was um, and I was excited about that. But when I was like actually sculpting on the show on the stream, I wasn't really like doing a whole lot of detail. But then in between, I was just like, I'm just gonna start getting like then just start kind of just doing little lines, like almost like just randomly, just throwing some little lines there, and it really helps. So again, I think that there's like a different mindset sometimes when you're not overly focused on um, like the big picture. You just kind of like do little things here and there, and that kind of works sometimes. Um, I really don't like where this is going, so I'm just going to go back to that. I think that makes more sense. Let's go with that. Okay. I know, but no. All right, so there you go. This is starting point. What I'm going to do is turn off Dynamesh. I am going to do a quick ZBrush just to kind of get those little Dynameshy triangles out of there. So let's just do a quick ZBrush really fast. Every once in a while, um, you should probably save, which it's been an hour and 10 minutes. I have not done that, so it's probably a good idea if I do that at some point. Um, Again, this is probably one of those things where deformers wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea too to kind of make some large scale changes, but just again coming here and again this is I already ZV mesh, so it's not a good idea to use the blob brush, but the blob brush is kind of cool for just real messed up stuff. Um, I bet you the blob brush is probably really good if you're using Sculptress Pro mode. Let's try that. Let's turn on Sculptress Pro mode and kind of do a little bit of that because the blob brush is very destructive to the mesh, but it does a cool thing. I'll go here to Sculptress Pro mode and so let's see what's that. Let's just see here if I just. Hey Orlando, how you doing, man? Thanks so much for coming by. You came by during the exciting glue blobbing phase here of the process. Geez, what happened there? I can imagine. Oh, geez, I forgot I had sculpture photo on. I can imagine myself kind of working with the blobs a little bit here, um, but in Sculptress Pro mode, just to kind of get a little bit of that going on. Right, I'm here to move down a little bit without Sculptress Pro mode on. But yeah, so I think I can kind of come back with this. I think this is kind of where I'm going to end up going. A little bit of that little blobby stuff going on there. So we got the tube, we got the wires going. Now let's take a look at this jumpsuit, right? Because again, he's got these little lines here, and I want to figure out a way to kind of make that work. Now, I have to keep remembering too. These are like so many little things that I just block out and then can easily forget. I can't forget the little candy wrappers at the bottom of his legs. But for these little lines here, I do think it'd be interesting to kind of try and turn that into something. I just don't know whether or not it's going to be too much of those little things. But I'm going to try it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go with the body here and duplicate it. The body is very, really high res. It's 4 million points, right? So I'm just going to go down one level and let's go to solo mode. And what I want to do basically is make a bunch of polygroups, a bunch of random kind of blobby polygroups out of this, and then see if I can just use kind of a curve brush to do some stitching on there. Going down to my 250,000, right? And let's go ahead and just delete higher for now. And let's just fill it with white so I can see this a little bit better. And again, I'm going to say it's a lot too. You're going to hear this from me a lot. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. So I'm going to hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. And what I'm going to do is just going to use my mask, I think. I'm going to use my mask pen. And I just want to kind of come out here. Again, I'm going to make this somewhat blobby. I don't think I need too many. I don't need it to be, crazy, but I just want there to be some of these kind of irregular blobby things on the jumpsuit that I can, I'll do that, that I can then um, attach kind of stitching to, basically. So let's try this. Let it wrap around a little bit here too. I want to kind of, again, I want to seem like it wasn't drawn by someone who's looking at it from a certain camera angle. Let's bring in one in here. And then here, maybe. Don't forget the back. Because again, this will be printed. I mean, in theory. Let's not do that one. Look at the leg here. Can we have one in here? Maybe a little bit of this. All right, so I'm masking out little areas that I'm going to basically just turn into polygroups. I just hit that somewhere. Okay. So let's try that. Maybe a little one here. I might not even see this, but that's kind of part of the idea, right? If it's barely noticeable, then it feels like it's more likely to be real as opposed to one that you just put there because you had nothing else there. So, I'm thinking out loud. Sorry. Okay, so let's Control Shift Tap. I'm sorry, Control Alt Tap to sharpen my mask. Then Control W, right? So now I have these different polygroups. Oh, for God's sakes. Yeah, Control W. All right, so now I have these. This somehow I left this stupid arm, so I need to let's get this little guy back too. All right, these stupid ones that I forgot about. I blame myself. So I'm going to hide all those, and let's just delete hidden. Go out to my lowest subdivision level, delete lower, delete hidden. Let's do a quick polish by features to see if I can polish the edges of these groups a little bit. All right. So basically what I have here are these little splotchy things. And what I'm going to try and do is use those as basically kind of an outline for a curve brush that's going to do some stitching. And we'll see how it looks. A lot of these things, like I mentioned before, these are trial and error processes, but that's okay. I'm going to do a quick auto group so I can select this one and get rid of it because I don't think I need it. And then Control W, make them all the same polygroup again. Okay, and let's just fill this because that green is driving me crazy. Now, let's go up here. I'm going to remesh this with same, actually, with half. That way, the edges should be cleaner because, I had to polish the edges to get them to look nice, and I'm just going to polish again. Okay, so now let's just give this a shot. I don't know if it's going to look, but I'm going to go here to my what's that thing called? Spotlight? Spotlight. Let's go to brush. And let's go, I think, curves? Do I have curve? I think I have curve stitching. Pretty sure I do, but it might not be in my curve brush. There's a stitch. There's some stitching. That might be all right. But I might also have a brush in my cloth, a curve brush in my cloth. I do, geo stitches. Okay, so let's try something like this kind of ring loop thing. Let's just see how that looks. So what I'm going to do now is make sure my brush is small-ish. And let's go up here to stroke, right? And I want to go to stroke. I keep missing stroke. There we go. Go to curve functions. I want to frame the mesh border, right? Because I just want to frame the outlines of all these. Now I got all these little curvy things. I don't know if it's going to do them all at once, but we'll see. Let's take a look and just tap. All right, there we go. So now I have all these stitches, right? So if I get out of here, you can see this is what I'm getting. I'm getting these stitches that kind of go all the way around. And I kind of like that. I think I'm going to tone them down a little bit. So I'm going to make my draw size something like 15. and then tap again. That feels better. Again, I'm not looking for this to be overly intense. Now I'm going to tap on the mesh here, make the dotted line go away, split unmask points, and then I want to hide the actual body. Let's see what's going on with these guys here. Okay. So one of the things you're going to see, these are very, very dark, but part of this is because I have ambient occlusion turned on, preview AO. So when you turn that off, it looks a lot more, recognizable, right? So let's slightly bring some of these out. I also just might inflate a little bit of these just to kind of build them up a little bit. So let's see how this looks. I feel like maybe I'm not getting the, I mean, it's not terrible. I feel like maybe I'm not getting the coverage that I might want. Seems like spaces in between. Yeah, I think that's not what I want. So I'm gonna delete that. But I still have my guy here. And let's just try a different one here. So let's just go back to my brush. Maybe it's just the stitches. Maybe I'll try something with something else and see if we get any luckier here. Frame border. Definitely those. You can see here I'm getting different layers, different levels of complexity with depending on where I'm hitting, which is weird. All right, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go here and I'm going to go auto group these. I wonder if I can just do these one at a time. I wonder if I get a better look. Let's just see. I just don't know. So this looks nice, I think. Let me split that off and see how that works for me. Bring everything back except for this and see how that works. Yeah, that's kind of more what I was going for, like this kind of that kind of little pattern, just a little stitching. Do a little inflate there. But that's kind of what I was going for, and I think that that's a way to do it for me. I kind of like this pattern too. Again, it just feels kind of really kind of homemade, which is why I like it. So let's see if that's part of the issue for this too. I was getting a weirdly spaced out stroke when I did them all at once. But I think it seems like when I do it this way, I get a better result. Make sure my draw size is a little bit smaller. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. So for whatever reason, I was getting variations in how big the curve was. Mary Cat, hello. Mike T says, thank you guys so much for showing up and stopping by and saying hello. It's always nice here. I feel like I don't hear from folks anymore during the school year, especially when I'm trying to stave off depression and despair. I just tend to, not to get to see the guys as much either. It's a bit of a bigger thing, but I don't think anyone's gonna be too bothered by that. All right, so that's good. I'm not gonna. What's up, Gus? How you doing, man? I think that will work. And again, I don't know that I want to force you poor folks to kind of sit here and watch me do this forever, but I'm going to split the ones I did off and pop them in a folder. Call it used. That way, it's easier for me to see what's up with this. Let's just isolate this, frame that mesh, go back to my geo stitches, make the draw size. I'm like 14. See how this feels scale-wise. A little smaller, 12. Split. So yeah, so you can see this is where I'm kind of going. I think this is actually a good way to go with this, is to use those different poly groups separately, one at a time, so that I get a more uniform distribution of the curve, which for some reason it didn't do that when I was trying to do them all at the same time. So live and learn. But I think this will be an interesting look. What it will also do. There's Mike T. What's up, man? Pete. Pete has got this awful haircut, which is kind of why I like it. I think that, like it's a very 70s, very bad 70s haircut, which is, might be redundant. I can say that because I lived in the 70s. I'm gonna merge this down. But yeah, I think again, it'll pay homage essentially to those weird lines that I don't quite grasp the meaning of. So I feel like I'm not ignoring them, and I feel like it might add to the it might add to the costume. Um, so let's try these. So I'm just going to do a couple of these. Then I'll go back to working on other things. So again, this is one of those things where it's probably best to do when I'm in that mode where I'm just like, I just want to get some stuff done, but without necessarily applying too much of myself. All right, so here is this new one here. Fill that with black. Oh, my RGB intensity is very, very low. That's why that was that. But, and I think, yeah, if I inflate these a little bit, it'll give the suit a little bit more of a visual interest as well. Toying with the idea of adding noise to the suit, of making the suit actually kind of like have a canvasy texture, perhaps. But again, I like that's probably just me not liking the idea of this just being a lot of real estate with very little going on. But if it is that kind of like a satiny clown suit, I just don't think it would have a lot of texture on it. And I don't. This is not an outfit that strikes me as being terribly textured. Like in fact, if anything, I think if I were to paint this, I'd probably paint it with a bit of a satin finish. See, it wouldn't be a Mario Kart visit without without Roll's flawless impression. Right. So this is where I think I'm headed with this. I think that this is worth it. I think I think it's working. I think that'll kind of, it's weird looking, but again, we're talking about a guy in a green clown suit and a baker's hat, jumping around shooting a glue gun. Weird has pretty much become a given at this point. Um, so again, we got the impression of the glue here. This just part of me is just like, maybe I should just go back to when it was against this. Is it this? Or is it this? See, this is the kind of important question we have to ask ourselves, guys. Should the glue be flipping up like that, or should it be against the bucket? I pose this to those of you who have much better judgment than I. Should the glue be against the bucket, or should it be flying off the bucket? What do we think? What do we think? I need to know. I'm not confident in my ability to judge. I don't know that I love the. Yeah, you think so? Flying off? Okay, good. That's good to know, because I was, it's tempting to kind of just say, well, it's against the thing. I mean, I like the idea of it just being a little off, yeah, coming out a little bit. And again, I can probably have a few more things coming off there. Um, but sometimes you need that little reinforcement that I'm not losing my mind. It actually makes sense to kind of have it. Yeah. Okay, all right, all right. Go away, old Pete, old Pete. And again, this is not finished. I'm going to go to my, be going back here at the blob and, oh geez, how hard you be. At the blob and doing some more of these guys and kind of making this feel a little more, you know, but I might even change the way I do this at all. I might do it, but yeah, there is this brush, and again, I don't know how did this get so big? People, there is a brush. I don't know where I got it. It might have been ZBrush Central. It might have been on Paolo's website. But it's like this melting wax brush. I don't even know what it looks like. Well, it's got paint turned on, so that's one thing. But I bet you, if I were to subdivide this and just paint this out, it's actually kind of cool. You get this nice little like blobby thing happening here. Ooh, I really do like this. Ooh, okay. Should probably go with the, but that's neat. Look at that. I mean, come on. It's so weird. I like it. Go with one of my favorite brushes ever, contrast delta, and just build it up. But I think that's actually a cool way to go. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do is remesh this, knock it down a little bit, smooth out some of these weird shapes. I wanted to get a feel for how it looked. Got ahead of myself with the whatchamacallit, the blob brush and all that kind of stuff. I think this is a good place to leave it and then come back later on with some shaping when I have a little bit more patience and more of a mindset for that. See, Abraham? Yeah, see, you crack that, get on these people. Jeez. I mean, to be clear, I don't blame them. But, let's go here to I spent probably 20 minutes pushing the same little bit of glue back and forth. If that's not entertainment, I don't know what it is. And there's a good bet that I don't know what it is. So, um, I can't figure out what is going on. Or no, absolutely, I'm printing this model. You can't have a model like Pa2te Pot Pete and not print it. I mean, what are we even doing here? Yes, absolutely. Am I printing this model? Yes, absolutely. I because again, like I actually think that this could be fun when it's all done. Um, I actually think that this will be kind of an interesting exercise in trying to overcome a design which does not lend itself to impressive to impressive character sculpts. Pa2te Pot Pete print precisely. Um, I was trying. You don't even know when I was writing the announcement for this in Discord how much time was spent trying to come up with um, alliterative phrases, and I just gave up. But I wanted more words that began with P because I just felt like it needed to be done. That it felt like there's probably there's a sentence out there that does it, and I don't know what it is, but man, I was really working for it. I was really looking for it. Oh, and do the cuts? Absolutely. Yeah, that is, and that's actually going to be for him especially, depending on the scale of this. It's going to be tricky because they're like he's wearing, of course, he's wearing a jumpsuit or a clown suit, right? And there's no clear place to no clear obvious slicing to be done. And that's one of the reasons why I was thinking about like really exaggerating the folds so that they're so exaggerated that you can actually hide cut lines in them. That was something I was considering. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I might just need to kind of like, bite the bullet and just kind of cut them somewhere. But like, I bet you that somehow I could kind of get a fold like right here, right? This should probably be on the friggin' jumpsuit. I bet you I can get a fold kind of like right here that's really exaggerated, and that would kind of hide the fact that that there's a cut there. So I can kind of like really just come in here and just, oh geez, don't do that. Just kind of bring this fold out like this, right? Like, you know, and I'm just masking with a really high resolution and then just doing a quick inflate, right? But like a fold like this that's kind of really exaggerated, you could probably hide a cut right in there, and I think I might do that. That again, that'll be kind of, this is a challenging sculpt in a number of ways. One, the subject matter we've mentioned. We know the problem with subject matter. He's Pa2te Pot Pete, for goodness sakes. But the other challenge is kind of like, you know, finding a way to cut it that's not going to be a nightmare to cover up. I've seen people do that where they kind of like, they fill in the gaps with putty and no one can tell. I have not figured out how to do that well. I can tell you that. So I think something like this would um, have to be done. So yeah, that should be kind of, you know, that'd be kind of an interesting process as well to kind of figure that out. So I'm going to leave the glue alone for now. I think that the idea works. I think that the sculpting has to come at a time where I'm not like in a rush, because that might be like a full day of just swirling blobs around. And it's exactly as exciting as it sounds. So what I want to do now is let's take a look. So let's see again, what did we do so far, right? So we figured out, we made the tube. Very exciting time was had by all. We made the tube, but we had to use kind of the ZBrush curves helper for that. We made the glue using nanomesh. Played around with the idea of how to create the sketch, the stitching, and kind of incorporate that into the body in a way that's not too intrusive, but kind of honors the original concept. So again, just going to I want to kind of play around. I want to make these little candy wrapper things around his feet. Um, I'm sure they have a name. They're ruffled in some form or other. So I want to kind of do that, because again, it's just going to add, it's going to add to the ridiculousness. So let's do that. So okay, so to get these little ruffly things here, I'm just going to pretty much, I guess I'm just going to use a cylinder and then just kind of mask out like a certain number of the spokes and then just kind of bring the rest in. So that's my plan. Who knows if this is going to work or not? Again, I say it's a lot, but it's because I genuinely have no idea. So let's come up here and just choose a cylinder. I'm just going to bring this in a separate place. That way nothing's in the way. It's probably a decent resolution in terms of the diameter. I'm going to go here and change it to a cylinder 3D. I have to make it a polymesh first, of course, but I'm going to change this to a cylinder 3D. The main idea being that I need to control how many um, little subdivisions I have. So let's come here around the outer corner and bring this down, something like 24, maybe 20, 20, 20. Okay, 20 sounds decent. I don't really want to have any vertical subdivision, so I'm just going to knock that down to nothing. And let's go back to my cylinder here and let's hide the top and bottom, delete hidden, and turn on double-sided. All right, so let's bring this in like so. And what I want to do, again, I just want to kind of like, I'm just going to grab some of these edges. I'm going to go my mask lasso here. I'm going to lasso out this edge. I'm going to lasso out this edge. I'm going to skip a couple, lasso out this edge, skip a couple, skip one, skip a couple, something like that. And then invert that. And I'll come in and just scale this in. Hold down Alt and scale in so that it scales everything but that. You can see here, kind of missed one, I think. So let's just get that guy too. Somehow. Had this happen a lot recently where I kind of try to invert a mask and it just clears the mask. All right, so I'm going to kind of bring this in kind of like this. Um, let's just maybe not bring that one in. I said maybe not bring that one in. Okay, that's fine. Some of these don't need to be all evenly spaced. In fact, let's actually let's mask that part out too. So I want this to be somewhat random, right? Kind of like this. This is gonna be these are my ruffles. I'm gonna go here now. There's a deformer. You can use taper too, but I'm gonna use a deformer and just mask out the bottom, right? Scale that in like this. I'm gonna go here with my insert, and let's just bring in one of these guys. I think just have to insert multiple edge loops, but since I just tapped, I get one smack dab in the middle. This is Bucky, who's making sure everything's okay. Scale this edge loop complete. Scales out a little bit. So as you can see, this is Bucky. He has a tendency when he does join me to focus his attention on my tablet, which I don't know if you know this, does make sculpting difficult. So here he is, and we're going to sit here with Bucky and encourage him to lay on my lap. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's go here and take a look. This is sorry, folks. He's he's on my tablet. Come on, buddy. Come down here, bud. Okay, so let's see if this works. So now let's do a little bit of randomization of this. I'm going to go here to a deformer again and just maybe grab some of these, pull some of these up. Don't want to bring all of those up. So just randomizing it a little bit here and there. That's Ruby, in case if you're hearing a cat who sounds like he's complaining. Okay, so there we go. We have this. And let's go here to dynamics of the, I just want to see how this looks. I'm going to come back here really fast to the other one, sample that green. That way I can see how this looks as well. And I want to go here to dynamic subdiv, and I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to turn the smooth down to 1 and turn the thickness up, right? So I can see how this looks. Maybe turn the smoothness up now to 2. And you can see here, let's just give it a little verticality. Okay, so this will be kind of like a starting point for that. Let's hit Shift D. Maybe I need to add a little bit more to this, right? So I want like, because right now when I smooth this, it vanishes a lot of it. A lot of it just kind of goes away. So maybe I can just incorporate some more edge loops in here, just to kind of see if by doing so, that'll keep that. I can even actually probably just bevel this edge. And that's going to kind of like, it's kind of, because there are 2 edges now, one, it'll round it off a little bit, but it'll also act as kind of a support edge, right? Because, it's like adding an extra edge there. So now if I do that, it kind of keeps those a little bit more distinct, right? Which is kind of what I'm going for here. And we got these very hard edges here. I guess it must be, I don't know if there's a crease to that or not, but that'll go away once I do it for real. So let's just see, is there a crease happening here? Is that why it looks like that? Nope. Okay. These edges just get very, very hard, I guess, when you do that. So, but this is kind of what I'm looking for, something like this along these lines. And let's go here. I'm going to make the dynamic subdiv. I'm going to go here to the thickness. I'm going to make the offset negative, so I can make it a lot thicker and not have it get too, too crazy. And you can see here, because it's kind of overlapping itself a little bit, it's getting a little bit weird. It's no big deal. We can fix that. It's just, but let's just hit apply and Control Shift Tab on the inside. Oh, hang on a second. Before we do that, let's undo the apply. Let's make sure that the bevel polygroups are all one thing. So that way I hit dynamic subdivision. Now I just have these different polygroups. Hit apply. Control Shift Tab to isolate the bottom and top groups here. I'll auto group, that way I can isolate one from the other. And let's just kind of bring this a little bit. I'll mask it out, bring everything back. Invert that mask. Oops. Invert that mask. Get down a little bit here. And then I can probably just go to my move. And oh, geez. I might go to my move brush here. Just adjust this a little bit if I need to. I might just end up extruding as well. I don't really know. This doesn't seem like it was a fantastic way to go about doing it. Actually, you know what I can do? What am I doing? I'm stupid. Shocker. Let's go here to stop it, Ram. We don't discuss that. I'm going to go to transpose edge loop complete, so I can select just this inner edge, and then I can pull that inner edge up. So I'm not actually affecting the outer edge, I'm just affecting the inner edge. Transpose. I forgot that was a thing. So that was on me. But so now I'm going to Control Shift click on the inside here. Control Shift S. That's on polygroup. And now I'm going to mask that out. Bring it. It's a whole bunch. It's a whole thing. It's a whole big thing here. I just want to control. I'm going to isolate this group, mask it out, bring everything else back, invert that mask, then pull this up. There you go. So basically, I was just trying to find a way to make this thick without it kind of like riding up. Finally, okay, we'll go with that. Now I'm going to come in here and because this is the actual look now, I think. Yep. I'm going to come in here and do a little bevel because this edge is way too sharp and it bothers me. So it's a little bevelings here. Same idea on the top, even though I'm not going to see it. Now I hit D for this for that. I'm going to take this and go back down to nothing. So I just wanted to see how this looks here. Okay. So a little bit still of this, but that's okay. Let's go here. And this little edge loop here needs to kind of be part of that. So these guys, all one. Mask, invert. Okay, and then invert that mask. Now I can just kind of push this part up. Anyway, there you go. A little polish my features just to help a little bit. All right, so that'll work for now. Lots of work for that stupid little frilly thing, but you know. Let's insert. Let's go back. Let's find him, and then insert the little guy here, and let's get him where it needs to go. I don't know if you noticed this. It's a little big. Only someone with a trained eye could probably notice that, but you know, it's an artist thing. Put this where it needs to go. Scale this down a little bit. Now I'm going to go here and do a little taper because I can't. I have to try. Here, bring this out a little bit. Now remember, I mean, this gets a little too wonky like that. You can always just kind of push that little white arrow in and kind of adjust the angle of the taper. Now we just need to, you know, a little smooth. I don't know if that smooth is a good thing or not. I just ruined it. That's okay. You always undo. I just wasn't liking the hard edge there. Okay. And again, like I will say this forever, obviously, but so much of this is just kind of putting things in place that you can kind of come back when you're in that mindset and just do some details and some sculpting. You just want to feel like the parts are there, you know. And let's just duplicate this, adjust it a little bit, move it for the other shoe. Speaking of shoes, I have not done anything to the shoes, and no RAM. They will not be gold. They will not be gold. Um, but they'll be roughly, and you can see here, just like by virtue of where they fall, I think the shoe is going to need to kind of be adjusted down a little bit here. Let's go to move infinite depth and just do a little. Right, something like that. I'm going to grab his little shoe. Where's his shoe? There's his shoe. This guy. And just nudge it down a touch. Which, as you can see, requires now that I go to my carefully plotted out glue and adjust that a little. I probably don't need to mention this, but this glue is a lifesaver. One of the things I have to figure out is this collar. Like, it's just a big white thing. Like, I guess I have to put like folds in it, or not folds, but like tears maybe, or something to kind of make it look a little, or stitching or something. Because it's just so yeah, it's just all right, right in your face. Um, so something to do. Still have to figure out his shoes. Still got to do his gloves and so forth. These are really heavy gloves, right? So like, I want these gloves to kind of feel like they are very heavy material. So like the folds in the fingers need to kind of feel very, very giant, very big. Um, and that's going to be another little tricky thing here. So got about like 9 minutes left. What I'm gonna do is something nice and quick. I'm just gonna do some little, again, like I said, I want this to feel like he's put tape around this hose, like to kind of like get it to connect to this little thing. So I'm gonna play around with that just a little bit. Just again, like stupid little things like this are the kinds of things that drive me crazy. I can never quite figure out the best way to do it. Like again, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this connector yet, but I want the tape to kind of maybe kind of go over that a little bit as well, right? So so I'm going to go to my little hose here. I'm going to duplicate the hose. So this is all I got right now is this little hose here. I'm going to go to polyframe, go to my select lasso, and just basically get rid of the stuff I don't need. Actually, I'm going to get rid of what I want to keep because that'll be easier. And then just delete hidden, right? So there we go. Now it's just this. And this is going to be kind of like basically where the tape is. And I could just extrude these out, again, but I want it to feel a little bit more random. So I'm going to use the slice curve, and I'm going to use it as a way of kind of like slicing in polygroups. So the base, it's sadly no, but translucent resin would be a good idea for this because it's glue, right? He has like this. He's Pa2te Pete is this diabolical arch supervillain who apparently invented an effective adhesive. So he did what any of us would do in that sense. He became a supervillain and tried to rob a bank with the glue. So he shoots glue out of the gun, and I think he actually I think he, and unfortunately for him, when he tried to rob the bank, I believe the Human Torch, Johnny Storm, was actually at the bank at the time. So he was kind of foiled, but he managed to, and I'm not making this up. I read this summary. I think it's true. He managed to get away from Johnny Storm by shooting his adhesive gun at a passing plane and then being just pulled away. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but yeah. So it's glue, which would still be kind of cool to have somewhat translucent, right? Just it's kind of almost like an opalescent thing. I think it'd be kind of neat to try that out. Um, That's definitely something that I'm kind of playing around with the idea. Yeah, exactly. Flammable glue. Right. I'm also considering, I was considering the idea somehow of having in the glue the name Paste Pot Pete, like almost like made out of the glue somehow. I don't know for sure. Again, these are ideas. It's like, maybe I'll figure out how sometime. And then when I try, I realize no, it's not gonna do it. But somehow I was thinking about doing it just almost to up the cheesy factor a little bit. But we don't know. We don't know for sure. Don't know for sure. But yeah, the base. Again, this is going to kind of limit the size of the print. I have to figure out how best to print out the base, whether it's in more than one piece or what have you. But that's going to be a big piece probably. Um, and the base for Jack of Hearts is similarly big like that, and that worked out okay. So that might be okay. I have my slice curve, right? So I control shift, then I'll hold down the space bar and change it to brush radius so that now I can just control shift and drag out a line, right? And it'll make a polygroup out of the brush radius, right? So I can kind of come in here and just like essentially do some um, random lines like this, right? So it's going to kind of give me um, what amounts to different layers of thickness. It's it's an idea, but I think again I think it'd be kind of cool to have like the word paste be kind of like just dripping with glue. Maybe I'll actually use hot glue. Like, maybe I'll actually just use glue. I mean, who knows? We'll have to see. If I get really frustrated, I might end up just using hot glue. So let's find a way now. I'm going to grab these guys and I'm going to see if I can remesh this. Usually it works without too much problem, but we don't know. Zero mesher, keep groups, turn off smooth groups, no adaptive size. Um, okay, let's do same. Don't forget to do this same. All right, cool. So now um, these are all separate polygroups here, which is good. I just want to see if I can maybe just nudge this down a little bit because this is a little thin for my taste. But yeah, I think having the name in there, just again, it would just be kind of a little extra cheese, you know. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is give it some thickness, but I'm just gonna close the holes after the fact, so I'm not worried too much about that. So I'm gonna come here now and extrude. Let's just close the holes right now, actually, so I don't forget. Now I'm going to do close holes with my Z modeler brush instead because you get a much better closed hole. A little bit of that, a little bit of that. Control W. Okay. So now I'm going to extrude these individual groups. You can do like poly. You can do panel loops. I think that's a little bit weird sometimes though. So I'm going to go and extrude individually here. Do a little bit of that, and then I'm going to bevel these edges. Oh, I missed. There you go. So now I'm going to make that different polygroup just because I want to make sure when I extrude this next one, it's not going to come out as the same as some of these other ones here, because sometimes that happens. So I bevel that loop, and bevel that loop. Okay. Drag this guy out here. And again, I'm just trying to keep them like somewhat different heights. And let's just see. I just want to make sure that nothing, because you can see here, sometimes they become the same polygroup as some other ones. And I don't want that to be a problem. Pull that out a little bit, just a touch. And let's bevel that loop, bevel that loop. Screw it up a little bit more. Bevel, bevel, screw it up. See here how it kind of makes them all the same polygroup after a fashion. Trying to bevel this edge. There you go. Why is it? Okay, let's do that. Yeah, kind of did. Okay. So now I have something like this, right? So it feels like there's kind of like tape on there. You kind of smooth this out. You kind of get something like that. Let's try and get rid of that weird little bend. Add a little edge loop just to keep those edges. And again, you can do a crease polygroup and that kind of thing. I don't know why I don't. I just don't. All right, so there we go. We got some tape, and we'll probably let's just add one more edge loop here because I've got a little soft area. And let's just for funsies, I got a copy. Change this to a polycube. That's a big polycube, relatively speaking, anyway. It's gonna be a little piece of the tape that is kind of sticking out a little bit here. Let's just really quickly add a couple of edge loops here. Just want it to bend a little bit. Got my trusty bend curve, 3 dots. Only 3 dots, folks. There's never any reason for more than 3 dots. My personal opinion. Maybe a little twist. A little widening there. There you go. Not that much. And let's just do a quick little insert here so that it maintains its edges, because I, for some reason, refuse to use creases. I have no reason to refuse to use creases, to be clear. I do actually use them on occasion, but sometimes I'm just like, nah, not today. Not today, creases. So I'm just going to go here, a little bit of, you know. Something like that. Right? Oh, jeepers. Stop that. There you go. Make this a little bit less clean. Push that. Oh, God. There's a little bit of a slight miscalculation there in how much force you needed to push that thing in there. I'm going to figure this out one of these days, guys. One of these days. All right, there you go. Okay, cool. All right, he's got tape. I might actually do a little bit more of that elsewhere too. Like maybe like there are holes in there that he had to kind of patch up. And I want this to feel a little bit more homemade. That would be kind of cool. Go here to the bucket really quickly, and let's give it. I go here to the lid, split hidden. So now this, I want to make a different thing here. Let's go up to the light box. This is just, little fun things at the end here. Just to kind of get a little preview of how that might end up being a little, something like that. I don't know. Right, but you can see what I'm talking about. I just want I want it to feel a little bit more. Let's turn off cavity detection because it's way too cavity detecting for my taste. There you go. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. You got a lid. So this little stream was a lot of like almost theoretical problem solving in terms of like things that I know need to get done, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do them. right? We got little things done too. We got the little candy wrapper stuff at the bottom of the legs, but mostly I wanted to kind of figure out things like how to do the stitching on the jumpsuit, how to do things like the glue and the tube, and like the things that kind of like essentially are the final major parts. Um, I have to figure out obviously the actual glue itself, the glue coming out of here. I want to figure out ways to make the bucket and the gun feel like a little more homemade, little details to kind of add that might make them seem, you know, not really professionally made, professionally done. Um, and start thinking about finishing up those pieces, and then and then working on the glue. The glue that's going to be the base is going to be a big. It's going to be a big production, really. But hopefully that'll be kind of like a big portion of the week. And hopefully on Thursday, on the next B side, we can kind of like start looking at things like cutting and keying, right, and kind of preparing it for a print and just making sure the dimensions work and that kind of thing. Because that is kind of a tricky thing to do. It does require a little bit of planning ahead of time, especially if it's going to be a base something like this, where the base is going to need to be incorporated into the print in a more substantial way. Um, so, hopefully this was helpful. Again, we did a lot of little mini things here and there, just kind of different types of approaches to making different parts of the outfits and different parts of the character themselves. A little bit of nanomesh, a little bit of curve helper, a little bit of those things. So hopefully that was a little bit more of a variety, not just me kind of pushing clay around. Although I did push clay around on the glue pot for a long time, and that was thrilling. But again, hopefully this was fun. Hopefully it was helpful in some form. Don't forget, Digital Forge is on 9 p.m. EST on Sunday with Ian. Um, no, yeah, and 6 p.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time with Ian. And next Wednesday, I think should be. Hopefully, I'll be putting out the 2-hour character creation of Goku. The videos are all done. Just gotta get them set up, and then we move on to another one. So that's kind of a nice little side gig too. Hopefully, that's helpful for some folks to kind of have little different character creations every 2 weeks. Um, Thank you guys so much again for hanging out. I hope I always wonder if whether or not this is dull, and it probably is, but I apologize. This is actually so much of this, and so much I think of sculpting in general, doing characters is kind of almost philosophical. You have to kind of figure out an approach that makes sense. Otherwise, you kind of end up just doing what is basic and what is familiar. And that's not always the most exciting thing to do, in my opinion. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error, a lot of failure, and that's kind of part of the game, I think. But again, hopefully that kind of shows that everyone does that. Thank you so much for coming out, guys. Andrew, Gus, Orlando, Nuno, thank you so much for sticking around with me. Hopefully this was helpful. Don't forget Digital Forge, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Ian on Sunday. It's going to be awesome, as it always is with him. Hope to see you guys then. Once again, thanks for coming out. I'll see you next time. What do you think, Buck?